and take a few days to find his feet and come to his senses. He could afford the time, he was so well up. When Spencer Coyle remembered how well up he was, he could have boxed his ears. The tall, athletic young man was not physically a subject for simplified reasoning. But there was a troubled gentleness in his handsome face, the index of compunction mixed with pertinacity, which signified that if it could have done any good he would have turned both cheeks. He evidently didn't pretend that his wisdom was superior. He only presented it as his own. It was his own career, after all, that was in question. He couldn't refuse to go through the form of trying Eastbourne, or at least of holding his tongue, though there was that in his manner which implied that if he should do so it would be really to give Mr. Coyle a chance to recuperate. He didn't feel a bit overworked, but there was nothing more natural than that, with their tremendous pressure, Mr. Coyle should be. Mr. Coyle's own intellect would derive an advantage from his pupil's holiday. Mr. Coyle saw what he meant, but he controlled himself. He only demanded as his right a truce of 3 days. Owen Wingrave granted it, though, as fostering sad illusions, this went visibly against his conscience. But before they separated, the famous crammer remarked, "All the same, I feel as if I ought to see someone. I think you mentioned to me that your aunt had come to town." "Oh, yes, she's in Baker Street. Do go and see her," the boy said comfortingly. Mr. Coyle looked at him an instant. "Have you broached this folly to her?" "Not yet. To no one. I thought it right to speak to you first." "Oh, what you think right!" cried Spencer Coyle, outraged by his young friend's standards. He added that he would probably call on Miss Wingrave, after which the recreant youth got out of the house. Owen Wingrave didn't, however, start punctually for Eastbourne. He only directed his steps to Kensington Gardens, from which Mr. Coyle's desirable residence — he was terribly expensive and had a big house — was not far removed. The famous coach put up his pupils, and Owen had mentioned to the butler that he would be back to dinner. The spring day was warm to his young blood, and he had a book in his pocket, which, when he had passed into the gardens and after a short stroll, dropped into a chair, he took out with the slow, soft sigh that finally ushers in a pleasure postponed. He stretched his long legs and began to read it. It was a volume of Goethe's poems. He had been for days in a state of the highest tension, and now that the cord had snapped, the relief was proportionate. Only it was characteristic of him that this deliverance should take the form of an intellectual pleasure. If he had thrown up the probability of a magnificent career, it was not to dawdle along Bond Street, nor parade his indifference in the window of a club. At any rate, he had in a few moments forgotten everything — the tremendous pressure, Mr. Coyle's disappointment, and even his formidable aunt in Baker Street. If these watchers had overtaken him, there would surely have been some excuse for their exasperation. There was no doubt he was perverse, for his very choice of a pastime only showed how he had got up his German. "What the devil's the matter with him, do you know?" Spencer Coyle asked that afternoon of young Lechmere, who had never before observed the head of the establishment to set a fellow such an example of bad language. Young Lechmere was not only Wingrave's fellow pupil, he was supposed to be his intimate, indeed quite his best friend, and had unconsciously performed for Mr. Coyle the office of making the promise of his great gifts more vivid by contrast. He was short and sturdy, and as a general thing uninspired, and Mr. Coyle, who found no amusement in believing in him, had never thought him less exciting than as he stared now out of a face from which you could never guess whether he had caught an idea. Young Lechmere concealed such achievements as if they had been youthful indiscretions. At any rate, he could evidently conceive no reason why it should be thought there was anything more than usual the matter with the companion of his studies, so Mr. Coyle had to continue. "He declines to go up. He chucks the whole thing." The first thing that struck young Lechmere